Welcome to Rambam in Depth. Today we're going to be discussing the Rambam, Hilchos Shabbos, Perek Shvi, Halacha Aleph, where the Rambam introduces the Lamed Tes Melachos. And he says as follows, Uminyan kol abis melachos arbaim chaser achas. There are 40 minus 1 melachos, ve'elohein. And he goes on to enumerate them. Hacharisha, the plowing, Azriya, the sowing, Vaktsira, the reaping, and so on. So the Maggid Mishnah makes an observation that the Rambam talks about the Malacha, Charisha, Zriya, Ktsira, Imur, and so on. When you look in the Mishnah, in Masechta Shabbos, which is the source of the Rambam, Dapayin Gimel Amud Aleph, the Mishnah over there says, Hazereya v'hacheresh. It puts it on the payel, on the one who does the malacha. The Maggid Mishnah doesn't make an issue of it, he just makes that observation. The Tosfos Yantiv on that Mishnah is perplexed. He says he doesn't understand why the Mishnah uses the Hazereya. We're talking about malachas, we're defining malacha. So it should have said Zriya, Charisha. And he brings the Rambam, as the Rambam does. So the Tosfos Yantiv sees the problem not with the Rambam, but with the Mishnah. The Magen Avis, that's a sefer on the Lamed Tes Melachos by Rav Mordechai Banet. So he gives a very interesting explanation. It explains why the Mishnah uses Zireya and the Rambam uses Zriya, the name of the Malacha versus the Payel, the one who's doing the Malacha. So he says as follows, that the Mishnah wants to follow all opinions. And there's a machlekes between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda, a malacha she'ein tzricha legufa, a malacha that is not done for the intended purpose of the malacha, the purpose for which the malacha has been designated. Rabbi Shimon holds your pater, Rabbi Yehuda holds your chayiv. According to Rabbi Shimon, you can't say the malacha, zriya, charisha, because just because you did zriya doesn't make that a malacha, because the malacha has to be lefi the intended purpose of that malacha. So therefore, according to Reb Shimon, you have to say hazereya, the one who plants, and people who generally plant for the main objective of planting, to grow crops. If you have another intention that you're doing it for another reason, that's not hazereya. That's not the way people are zereya. Masha'enkin, according to Rabbi Yehuda, which the Rambam paskins like Rabbi Yehuda. Other Rishonim and the Shulchan Aruch doesn't paskin that way, but the Rambam paskins like Rabbi Yehuda. The malach she'ein tzricha legufa, you're chayiv. So according to the halacha, the malacha is the charisha. The malacha is charisha, not hacherish, the one who does it for the right purpose. It's the etzem inyan of charisha is what makes the malacha a malacha. So that explains the difference between the Mishnah and the Rambam. Rabbi Yosef Engel, in Asman Deraisa, explains why the Mishnah uses the Hazereya. According to the Tosfos Yantiv, the question is not on the Rambam, the question is on the Mishnah. So he says that this is a raya to those poskim who hold that Melachos Shabbos are on the Gavra. They're on the Payel, the one who does the Malacha. And therefore, the Mishnah says, Hazereya, HaCherish. It goes on the person, the Payel is doing the Malacha. The question is, there are many poskim who hold differently. The poskim who say that the Malacha is not just that the person should rest, but that the world should rest. And this is the crux of the machlekes HaPoskim, as to why Amiru La'akum, telling a non-Jew to do a malacha, why that's aser. According to Rashi, it's because of shlichus, that the non-Jew becomes your shliach to do the malacha. It's as if you did the malacha. And yes, shlichus la'akum l'chumra, that l'chumra, to be stringent, we do assign the status of shliach to the non-Jew. Other paskin that couldn't be the reason, the Chassam Sefer and others, and they say the reason why it's not because of shlichus, because Shabbos, the ikar inyan is that the body should rest. You should rest. You shouldn't do the malacha. So what's the point? What's the problem if someone else does it for you? If a non-Jew does it for you, there's no problem. The shlichus doesn't apply over here. The Alter Rebbe, however, and other poskim say no. They paskin like Rashi that it's because of shlichus. That proves that the malacha is not on the pile, is not on the person that he should rest, but that's the nifal, that the malacha should not be done. So one could say that the Rambam, who puts the emphasis on the name of the malacha itself, holds that there is an inyan of shlichus, and therefore the malacha is on the nifal, on what is accomplished through the malacha. The Mishnah is following the opinion that says that it's on the pile. In other words, one has to go back and say that there's a machlekes somewhere in Gemara, in Shas, about these two approaches, and the Rambam reflects one opinion, and the Mishnah reflects the other opinion. But that's a little bit difficult to say. There's a sefer called Tal Nosson, by Rabbi Nosson Gestetner from Bnei Brak, one of the poskim in Bnei Brak of this last generation. So he gives an interesting answer that might connect to what we just said. He said there's a machlekes in the Mishnah of Tzadik Beis between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir on one side and Rabbi Shimon on the other side. What happens if two people do a malacha together? So Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir say, if zeh yachal v'zeh yachal, pater. If they can both do it by themselves, so by the fact that they're doing it together, they're pater from the chatos. However, zeh eina yachal v'zeh eina yachal, if either one cannot do it without the other, then they're chayiv. Rabbi Shimon holds no, that even if zeh eina yachal, the fact that two people are doing the malacha, that takes away from the status of malacha, and they're not chayiv, they're pater. So the Mishnah in Shabbos could be wanted to follow the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. And since Rabbi Shimon says that even if this is eina yachal and this is eina yachal, they're pater, because he holds that as long as you didn't do the whole malacha, you're pater, because the chiyuv is on the person who does the malacha, according to Rabbi Shimon. And since he didn't do the whole thing, so the Mishnah says, no, you're pater. Hazireya, you have to do zireya, but if someone else does it with you, it's not a full malacha. The Rambam paskins later on, earlier in Perik Aleph, halacha tezayin, like Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir, that zeh eina yachal, you're chayiv, even though two people are doing it. So they hold that even though one is not doing it completely, who cares? As long as the malacha was done. So the focus is on the malacha. The tzarech iyun that I have over here is that there's a sefer b'dvar melech from the Goyen Rabbi Yitzchak Report, where he asserts that the malachas of Shabbos are on the pale. And the Rebbe, in a letter to him, writes that you can't say that by all malachas Shabbos. Why? He gives a raya from the halacha that if you take a ches and you erase the gag, the roof of the ches, and it turns into a vav and a zayin, you're chayiv, because you wrote two letters, even though you didn't write two letters. There was no pile over there. So you see that in certain malachas, you don't go by the pile, you go by the nifal. So the Rebbe is telling us that you can't give a klal that malachas are all pile or malachas are all nifal. Some malachas could be pile and some could be nifal. Maybe they're all nifal, but to say that all malachas are one or the other, and they're all pale or nifal, it's more likely that they're all nifal than they are all pale. Anyhow, that's a little bit of a tzarech iyun, so we'll leave it at that. If anyone has any ha'aras, please give me a call, and I'll be glad to discuss it further.